Making time. It is the creepiest thing when you get that message. So I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of my background and my story, what I've learned, and things I wish I would have known when I was your age. So I'll spend 15 minutes or so talking about that, then I'm going to toss to Bob, and then we'll make time for questions. If you do have questions, feel free to just put them in the chat, and then you can see what other people are asking, and we'll get to those when it's Q&A time. So with that, my name's Tarek. I have been doing this for a long time. My background is technical. So I started my first company 20-something years ago. And I left a really good, high-paying job at a Fortune 500 company because I didn't want to get to the end of the line, whenever the end of the line is, and have any regrets. So for me, that's been a big guiding principle of not getting to the end and regretting you wish you would have done something. And so on my list was always, I want to at some day start a business. So I did that, and my thinking was, what is the worst case scenario? This doesn't work out and I go back to a high-paying job at a big company. Well, I did that 20-something years ago, and I've been starting companies ever since. I taught myself to code at the age of 12. So super nerdy, as you might guess. And I've always loved that aspect of starting a business, which is how does technology make someone's life easier? So that's been a theme with the businesses that I've started. And one of the things that I like to ask future entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs is, what is your motivation? Why are you doing this? Why do you want to start a business? And I will ask them, how many of you watch Shark Tank? And a bunch of hands go up in the air. I watch Shark Tank, yeah. And I want to be like Mark Cuban, and I want to have a private jet, and I want to drive a Maserati. Like, cool. Money is, I think, what is out there. That's what people see. They see these entrepreneurs and they look at it. It's really sexy and they're all rich. And I ask, well, how many people want to start a business because you want the Gulfstream and you want the Maserati or Tesla? I'm going to go sustainable. I'm going to go Tesla. So how many people are doing it for that purpose? And a bunch of students will keep their hands in the air. And then I say to them, Kroger is here, and a good friend of mine, he just retired. He was the CIO at Kroger, and you can go look up how much he makes per year. It's public information because they're a publicly traded company. And he was making $5 million a year at Kroger. And they're shocked by this. That is, let me put it in terms that you can understand. So some of you have had probably some part-time jobs, worked in the summer, and you get paid probably every 2 weeks. So in his check every 2 weeks, he's getting $200,000, basically. Every 2 weeks, $200,000. The odds of you ever in your life starting a business where you will walk away with $5 million even one time is almost zero. It's literally almost zero that you will ever do this even once. So if your motivation is money, then you should go work at Kroger, is the honest answer, because you will have a much higher percentage of achieving what you think you want to achieve, or Procter, or Macy's, or GE, or any of these big codes. That is how you should proceed if that's your primary motivation. So then they look at me with puzzled faces and they say, well, Abby, can I cuss? Is that cool?
Go right ahead. We're all adults here.
I don't know.
For the most part.
Just in case. So they look at me and they say, well, why in the fuck would you start a business? And I tell them the honest answer is there's no formula that can guarantee that you're going to be successful. That's the truth. But there are things and attributes about certain people that move the needle towards success. So I'm increasing the odds that I will be successful. And probably the biggest factor in my mind is that you see the world differently than how it exists today. There's something missing. You're not motivated by money. You're motivated by this vision of the world that could be better if this idea you have in your head came to life. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be social change. So I view Martin Luther King and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and all these folks as entrepreneurs because they follow the same pattern. They see the world differently than it exists today, and they cannot help themselves. They think about it all the time, 25 hours a day, in the car, in the shower, 4 o'clock in the morning. They cannot help themselves. This thing will not let go of them. So does that mean you're going to be successful? No. There's lots of other things that have to happen for you to actually be successful, and some of it is luck. So there's a great podcast on NPR called How I Built This. And they interview these successful entrepreneurs, and at the end of every episode, he asks them, how much of your success do you attribute to your hard work, how smart you are, your upbringing, and how much of it is luck? And almost every single one of these entrepreneurs, and they're all big businesses that you would have heard of, almost every one of them says, I work my ass off, but there's luck involved. There is absolutely luck. Right place, right time, meeting with the right person, sitting next to the right person on a flight that you just happen to start up a conversation with. Luck does play a role. So you can't ever guarantee success. Lots of good ideas have not been successful. So when you really think about what is the motivation for you to want to be an entrepreneur, I hope it's coming from this place of, I see the world differently than it exists today, and I can't help myself. And you're not thinking about money. Now, I say all that, and I've done this a number of times, and I learned early on that when I stopped thinking about safety and security and money, and just started making decisions based on which path would I regret more. If I don't take this one, which one would I regret more? When I started leading my life that way, it's interesting how money follows you. So when you stop thinking about it and stop pursuing it, and you really do it for the right reason, money just seems to follow those types of people. Again, I can't guarantee you're going to be successful, but I want you to be motivated for the right reasons. If you are motivated by money, like I said, I think there's different paths that you could take that will get you there faster and have a much higher percentage chance that you will achieve your goal. If you're motivated by money, and I've seen this with entrepreneurs in the past, they get tired quickly because, so take Abby, she just graduated, right? You just graduated? True? Okay. So if she were to go out and start a business and she's thinking about making money, you don't make money in the beginning. It takes a long time for you to start making money. And so you're paying yourself nothing or very little. You're not buying the things that your friends are buying, right? They're buying cars and they're buying their first house and all these things, and you're eating ramen noodles. And you don't get to go out because you can't afford it. And so you see this and you want that, right? Because you're motivated by money. And so you will give up you will give up on this business sooner than you should. It's way more work than anyone would ever tell you. I used to have hair. So if that gives you a sense of how hard it is to do this and that it's not sexy, it is hard. But if you're motivated by money, you will quit and you will go take that high paying job. And that's the path you'll go down. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you are motivated by, I do not care. So you think about the people that really change the world, like Elon Musk is on the verge of bankruptcy countless times because he wasn't doing it for money. He believes in these things. If you look at social entrepreneurs, they risk death, like Martin Luther King. He clearly is not doing that to make money. That doesn't make any sense. In fact, he is taking a crazy amount of risk, but he can't help himself. That is the way the world should be. Those are the people that actually change the world. And so an underlying theme here is, how do you change the world? So if you're going to really want to drive a difference in the world, it has to come from the right place. And you have to know how hard it will be. And you have to know that money may not be a thing for you. And you have to be okay with it. Because if you're not, this will seem crazy. It is insane. Anytime I hear an entrepreneur say, I want to be Mark Cuban and I want a jet and a car and whatever, I say, you would be insane to start a business. This is the dumbest decision you could ever make, is to start a business with the intent of making money. It's counterintuitive to probably everything that you have heard and learned, but it's the truth. There are so many more effective ways to make money. That should not be your motivator. So let me kind of pause here. That's a lot. Hopefully this will spur some questions. Happy to answer those and get into those. I don't want to make it sound like entrepreneurship is all negative. Clearly it's not, because I wouldn't be doing this over and over. It's just part of my DNA now. And I can't imagine doing anything else. Plus, if I ever worked at a big company, they would fire me in 0 seconds because I question everything. You have to, as an entrepreneur, you learn that skill and attribute of question everything. And big companies don't necessarily like questioning it. This has been our process for 100 years. Who are you to come in and question this? They don't like that. There's a hierarchy. I will never do well in a hierarchy. And Bob probably can talk more about that because he's worked at some big companies. And I did too in the past, but it's been a long time. So hopefully this sets the stage for what I think is the right way to be motivated of when you should and shouldn't start a business. And hopefully this has spurred some questions, which I can't wait to get into. So with that, let me turn it over to Bob, my good friend Bob, to kind of take you through the next part of this process and give his side of the story.
Before Bob jumps in, Tarek, and thank you, Tarek. Just one question in the chat. Do you believe that you create your own luck?
I think the Ben Hogan line, so he's a golfer, one of my favorite athletes. He gave the line to a reporter. They asked him, because he kept winning these golf tournaments, and this was in the 50s. And it seemed like he would come back at the end and win these golf tournaments. And so the reporter asked him, how are you so lucky? And Ben Hogan had the best line, which I think applies to entrepreneurship. He said, you know what's interesting? The harder I work, the luckier I get. And that's, I think, applies to entrepreneurship. You have to put yourself in a position to move the needle as much as you can. And then hopefully you see these opportunities and luck bounces your way. But all you can do is control what you can control, which is how hard you work, how fast you move, how you treat other people, and being motivated by the right reasons.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Assuming Josh asked the question.
All right. Well, I'll jump in there and maybe I can actually start off by sharing a story of something that's happening right now in my company. So I'll tell you my overview in a second. The short version is I've had two companies that I've been an owner in that we've sold for about $50 million each. And yet what I'm doing right now is trying to make a Chipotle order for 10 clients at their office because they won a contest that I created in my new startup, and someone from DoorDash is telling me that they lost the order, and I've got, it's actually 13 people at this company that are waiting for the special lunch that they won to come in, and I'm more stressed about that than anything else right now. So that's.
Do you need to take 5, Bob? We can,
I don't
can fill
know.
in.
I mean, if I go quiet for a second, whatever. But
Okay.
life will go on. But that's what it is. Like that's no matter how successful or important you think you might be, like somebody's got to get the Chipotle order. And like Tarek, I love this process of jumping in and building and doing things. My quick background, I'd say a theme for me of getting into the startup world. When I was in college, I got a degree in economics. I think I wanted to do something in business, but had no idea what I wanted to do. Certainly being an entrepreneur was, not on the horizon. But I really started off with a strategy way back then, which was kind of said to myself, I don't know what my calling is. And you probably get lots of people, go follow your calling, go follow your mission. And the reality is most of us, don't know that very early in life. And so for me, my strategy was let me go expose myself to more experiences and types of work. And through that, I will gravitate closer and closer to what is that calling and what I love best and what I'm best at. And so for me, it was going from an economics major to a kind of training and development program in a bank in Florida. I was there for 3 years and said, learned a lot about business by touching a lot of different businesses at a bank, but said, hey, I don't want to be in finance, and I would like to go get a business degree. So for me, I went and got my MBA as part of that, and I discovered a passion for marketing, and I also discovered a passion for this whole digital internet thing, which back in the mid-90s was just getting going. And I said, wow, I want to be a part of that group of changes that's going on, and I love the marketing world. And that led to an opportunity for me to go come to Cincinnati and work for Procter & Gamble. And although I was tempted to actually do a startup right out of my MBA, once again, I said, hey, let me just get some more experience. Procter will teach me a ton about marketing. When I got there, they said, oh, you love digital? Great. We don't know what to do, so we're going to let you figure out what we should be doing in the digital world. And they also said, hey, go work on these new products like Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Swiffer and Febreze that were just getting started. So it was a chance to kind of do new things, but get the benefits of training at a big company. And I was there for about 6 years. I had a great experience. But some friends of mine from Procter, they had left and basically bought a small advertising agency in Cincinnati and started focusing on digital marketing. And after they kind of got it going, they called me up and said, hey, Bob, we love you. You love this digital stuff. Come join our agency. We'll give you a piece of the company. Join our executive team. And so for me, that was a great leaping off point to get into the entrepreneurial world. Being a business owner, running a different type of business, getting out of the big company world. We grew our agency from like 50 people to 350 people. We sold it in 2000, end of 2010. And then I was kind of part of a big company for a little bit, and similar to Tarek is, once you've been in a big company, you don't want to go back. And I left, spent about a year at Cincy Tech, which is an investment firm, an investor here in Cincinnati. Got to learn the investor side of the world, and then jumped in with another guy to start a company called Ahology, which the true software startup. We started off seeing an opportunity around Pinterest, and Pinterest was just getting big, and we said, hey, we could become the top company to help brands win on Pinterest, and raise a bunch of money, hired a bunch of people, and a couple years in, realized that Pinterest wasn't growing big enough, fast enough, and we had to do something else. So we had to do layoffs. We had to get one more round of financing and figure out what to do with the business. It's kind of like a near-death, situation. But we turned it, the challenge into an opportunity and shifted or pivoted in the startup world. It's called over to influencer marketing, which was big and growing, and we were able to bring a new approach to influencer marketing. We turned it around, got profitable, started doubling in sales, and then got on the radar of large companies who were interested in our company. We decided to sell and finished that sale process in March last year, just before COVID. In fact, we had a company celebratory vacation to Cancun together, the week before everything shut down. And I left 2 weeks after that and then started a new company called Hardy, which, we'll get to from here. And DoorDash guy says he's making the order, so wish me luck. So let's jump into some more questions here.
So there's one question a couple questions in the chat. First one is from Carl. What round number was that where you had to pivot Ahology?
Who is that Carl guy? I know. He sounds familiar. Carl, I don't remember. It might be in Crunchbase somewhere, but one lesson we had in raising money, a couple things. One is that I think we made every mistake in the book and how we raised money. Too many investors, too much money, too many rounds, small rounds. We treated the fundraising process like, oh, we just raised a round, and the next goal was raise another round of money. Because I think, everybody, there's a lot of people in the startup journey now. People are learning, and we're a couple of generations deep. But at an early point, everything became around, you were taught, your board members, your investors would teach you, you've got to raise more, you've got to raise more, when are you raising again? And they would almost look at raising funds as success. And so you start thinking that too as a founder. So that's a kind of a key learning is don't think of raising money as the goal at all. It's almost a necessary evil. And it really should be approached as, not to raise money unless you've got something so magical that's so proven that you would put your first dollar in yourself. And that's really, if you need to, the right time to go try to get investors to come along. But I think it was, I don't know, third round, A++ round, something like that, Carl.
I can add a little to that as well. So I think this is a healthy conversation because a lot of what you see on social media is around raising money. And people celebrate these big rounds. What they're not telling you is the thousands of companies that aren't raising money and how hard it is to actually do that. They're also not telling you the baggage that comes with that money and the pressure that you will feel as an entrepreneur because you now have these bosses that might have a different outlook than what you believed in the beginning. And they're going to focus very much on short-term things versus you have this long-term vision, and that can create friction. So I've taken the approach pretty much my whole career of, and I think this helps me being technical, I want to go as far as I can without raising money. I want to bootstrap, I want to build and build and build. With the current company, Circle, we have raised close to $5 million so far, but no institutional money. This is all from individuals that I know or have known or was introduced to. And so it allows me to do what I think is right. We don't have a board of directors. There's no one telling me what to do. They just trust me. But we are now at a point where we are growing so fast, we do have to go raise real money. And so we're in that process, but it puts us in such a good position because we are in control. We still have lots of equity to give up. And that conversation is now, I think, much healthier because we've proven product market fit, we've proven demand, we've got big logos and customers. And so what you're going to see is that investors, especially in the Midwest, and Bob, jump in if I'm speaking out of school here, in the Midwest, the mentality is they want to bet on a sure thing. They want to see growth and they want to fund growth because they don't like risk. On the coast, they're much more open to you being earlier stage or not being fully baked. But either way, the further you can get without raising money, the better position you will ultimately be in.
Yep, total. And I just say add, it's kind of like getting, you know, the investor process is, it's kind of like getting married. and you know, that you've got to really know them well, to really trust, and then it's not just like in a marriage. Many of you probably not married, I'm realizing, but you get an equal say. You don't get to just guide where you want to go. You've got a partner in every decision now, and you may not like where that partner is driving you.
Bob and Tarek, can you guys briefly just tie it back to the pitch competition and what they're trying to accomplish with that in terms of how you have developed product market fit and all the key milestones you've accomplished?
Sure. So I think for a pitch competition, you know, they're going to be really thinking about and looking at a couple of things. So most investors are thinking, what is the potential upside of this idea? So you're going to hear things like, what's the total addressable market? And that's going to be some big made up bullshit number that no one has any data to prove or disprove. So you just make up a number. We believe the total addressable market for this idea is $100 trillion. And you can come up with whatever math. And you know, if we own 10% of this market, we're worth some crazy number. So they're basically playing this game. This is what's really going on. This is the game that you're playing. Investors, the earlier they come in, the bigger the return they expect because they're taking more risk. This is economics 101. So the earlier you're in, the more risk you take, the bigger the return should be for me. So if I'm early money in, and let's say I'm going to give you $1 million, and let's say you're going to, we'll play Shark Tank. So I'll say, all right, I'm going to write you a check for $1 million. I'll get 10% of your business. Cool. And I have to, in my mind, say this has a legit shot of becoming a $100 million business. So do you have a path to show me that you can really turn this into a $100 million business? And that's all you're doing. You are saying, I've got an idea. I think it could be worth 300 million. Cool. If you can actually get to 300, that's even better for me. That's 30 times my money. But if you can get it to 100 million, I'm still winning. That's 10 times my money. And that's what they're going to look for. And that is what's really happening is they are playing this game internally to say, how early am I in with this business? That will determine what's the return I need, and you have to prove to them and make them feel comfortable that you can actually achieve that. That's the game that you're playing.
And I would just add, there's a lot of there's in a pitch, there's kind of maybe two broad ways you can look at it. First is the third party analysis. Is this a smart market? Is this a good idea? Some of those pieces of, does this make sense? But there's also, equally and maybe more important, is the investors, the judges, what have you, is looking at you. This is like a job interview. So are you presenting well? Do you answer questions well? Are you passionate about this? Have you done your homework? Like it's, much more, especially in early stages, whether they say this or not, they're betting on the person and the team, not the business prospects. And that kind of goes into the pivot concept of most ideas don't survive the first 2 months of exposure to the real world. At the very early stages, you just like ecology, and most startups pivot even more earlier on. It's an idea. Ideas are cheap. Markets are big. It's really about, are you the kind of person or team that's going to be able to drive this, overcome challenges, invent, solutions to things that you don't even know you'll face yet.
I think that's a really good point. I'm glad you mentioned it, Bob. I think the formula for success is probably 70, 85%, somewhere in that neighborhood, people, the team. How do you lead? How do you deal with adversity? How hard do you work? Do you like to solve problems? That's 75% of it. 25% is your idea, and that will change. And if you look at these big businesses and where they started, that's not where they are today because they have to pivot. So smart people will still see opportunity and understand how to survive. And that's really important. It is the people that make the business.
Thank you both. Turn it back to Abby in the chat because I think there are a couple of points there.
Yeah, so we've got another question from Lance, and he wants to know, do you believe that an MBA has more benefits or detriments for an entrepreneur?
I'll do that one to start at least. Many more detriments. I wouldn't do it. So as a guy who spent a lot of money on an MBA, I think in the late 90s, 60 grand plus, I don't even want to know what it is today. Not to mention the time, 2 years I went full time. I think, and especially as an entrepreneur, you have so many ways that you can learn for free. Number one, like go work for a startup for free, even go work at an early stage startup, take whatever job they'll give you. The learning that you see firsthand, hands-on, is all you need. The problem with MBA, there's a lot of problems aside from the money and time investment, but they're not teaching entrepreneurship really. And I think there are a few programs. Miami has a program that I hear good things about. I don't know if it's undergrad or MBA or both, but they'll take you out to Silicon Valley and they've got exposure to a pretty big network. If you can get into Harvard Business School, that's a top program that a lot of founders, both get education and connections out of. But by and large, you have professors that have not started businesses or raised money or been in the trenches teaching off of kind of textbooks or just guest speakers like Tarek and I coming in. And, it's much better to create a business on the side while you're working full time, or again, go work at any startup you can find. And you'll see it and experience and live it so much better. Don't ever feel like you need that. The classes themselves, again, you can go pick up an accounting book and learn that when you need it. You can pick up a marketing book or 10 marketing books and 25 startup marketing blogs when you're ready to use that knowledge. Another problem with that's another problem with the MBA is you go and you'll have a class, but you won't be applying it. I can't remember anything from my MBA, and it's just really, and you don't. No one's going to invest in you because you have an MBA, or oh, there's a box to check. That again, much more maybe on the big company side, if anything, but I have a hard time thinking that's a good path if you want to start a business.
Ditto. I think if you are in a big company, it's probably going to be helpful to you. If you really are thinking about entrepreneurship, the question comes down to it. So let's say it's, I don't know, let's use Bob's example and say it's $60,000 to get your MBA. Will you learn more and be better if you invested $60,000 in yourself and started a business and said, I'm going to be my first angel investor. I'm going to put in 60 grand into this idea. 100% of the time, you'll be better off, in my mind, because you will learn what it's really like, what you need to be successful. And there is a chance that that 60,000 could really turn into something meaningful, because if you tap into this business and it really takes off, with an MBA, you walk away with a piece of paper. So not only will you be better off because you really understand what it takes to start a business, because you have to do it, you have the chance of that 60,000 that you're investing in yourself turning into something meaningful. So couldn't agree more with Bob's position on that.
Thank you for those answers. I know as a recent Xavier grad, that always comes up into question of, oh, should I just go another year and get my MBA? But I've heard mixed things, and especially coming from Bob, sounds like I'm on the right path in terms of trying to find my first job and maybe not stick to the books for another year. I actually personally have a question for both of you. Imposter syndrome is very much a real thing for me. And I also think almost every entrepreneur experiences it at some point. Could you both give a time that you maybe felt imposter syndrome and how you were able to get over that to achieve a major goal?
You want me to go first, Bob?
Sure.
Looks
Yeah.
like you're deep in thought. I don't know if
Maybe-
it's Chipotle.
Define imposter syndrome for the group.
So I guess the way that I view imposter syndrome is like knowing that you do have the skills to be able to be successful, but being too scared to jump in and take the opportunity and take risks. Ultimately, I think that's how I define imposter syndrome at this point in time for me.
I think it's probably part of everyday life as an entrepreneur, especially in the beginning, because you're doing everything. You literally are doing the books, you're dealing with investors, you're hiring, you're figuring out everything, and no one is good at everything. So the issue with imposter syndrome in entrepreneurship is you don't have a choice. It's like entrepreneurship is pushing you into the pool. Whether you want to swim or not swim, you don't have a choice. You have to go figure it out. And it is one of the skills that I think entrepreneurs develop quickly. It is, this analogy is, if I take you and I place you on an island and I say, figure it out, or you die, that is what's going on. You don't have a chance to be timid or you will die. You have to figure it out. I don't know shit about creating a shelter, but I guarantee you I will figure it out. I think any entrepreneur that has been through this process is really not afraid of anything, because you've done it and you know you have the skills, you will figure it out. So in the moment, probably the first time you go start a business, a lot of this will be, I feel like an imposter because I don't know anything about accounting. You don't have to know. You will figure it out. I don't know anything about finance. I don't know anything about raising money. You don't have to. You will figure it out. There is no book you can buy on Amazon that will tell you this is exactly how to make this company successful. Every company is a snowflake. So you will quickly get over any trepidation you have because your only other choice is you die. So when that's the alternative, you just jump in. So I get it. I think you see more imposter syndrome in, I would guess corporate roles where people could see me, I can't figure it out, but my alternative isn't die. So they're timid and they want to hide within that big corporate structure. Entrepreneurship, you can't hide anywhere. So I don't think it's that big of a deal for entrepreneurs. I think you don't have a choice.
I throw out a couple builds. I think early in my career, I just had a couple of people that nudged me along. Like, you sometimes feel like, whether at a big company or even a big company you're trying to fit in, or a startup, you have a board, you sometimes feel like, well, they're smarter than me, so maybe I should just let them tell me what I should do. And I think I've had a couple people that have said, no, you tell them, you know better. Like, you know your thing better than anyone else in the world. If you're a big company, you're doing, when I was at Procter, I was the lowest level person, but I was the one reading emails from customers, and I was the one going to a research center and doing interviews with potential customers. And so I could go in and tell my 4-up boss, this is what we need to do because this is what our customer wants, because I've been speaking with her and 50 of her, 100 of her. And so that gave me both the confidence myself, to make recommendations and feel good that, hey, this person hasn't talked to a single customer. You're a fancy title, but that you don't know what people want. Again, not in a mean way, but like a confidence building way. I mean, it's a version of if you've ever been afraid of public speaking, they say, picture the audience naked. That's a trick that you're thinking, well, they don't, they're naked. They're the ones who are silly, not me. And so that's a little bit of a version of what I'm trying to say, but it's more around, hey, I've got knowledge and experience from doing the work, from building the shelter, as Tarek said, that no one else has. And so you should be confident in that. And just once in a while, it's good to have friends or mentors or a manager once in a while that just says, why are you just tell me what I should do? You tell me what we should do. And that's like whoa, really? I get to? Cool. And but I think the second thing is it's natural and good to be a little bit self-doubtful, self-conscious. You don't want to get too. You need to be humble. Like knowing. I think, and that's part of building a startup too, is that you may have a real passion in your idea, but be able to at the same time go, you know what? I could be totally full of crap. This could be awful. People might hate this. And so that's really hard sometimes for people to, they think I need to be so confident and just, this is perfect. This is great. I talk to founders sometimes that are early on and they'll, over beers, and they'll go, I've got it all figured out. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. This is great. Everyone's going to love this. I'm going to be a rock star. And you just kind of go, okay, all right. Oh, well. I mean, they're just doing nothing but telling you how great this thing is. And there's a real danger in that, is that you're not listening and watching and paying attention to what your customers want or what the competition is really doing, what the holes might be in your idea. And so I think there's this, being, it comes down to confidence, like confidence to say, yeah, I'm passionate about what I'm doing. I'm throwing my whole, career into it. I'm not taking a salary. But at the same time, boy, please tell me I'm wrong if you see something I'm missing, because I'm sure I'm missing something. And only by being open in that way am I going to get the input or feedback that might help us pivot earlier to have a higher chance of success.
I think that's a thing that I see as well, is that entrepreneurs fall in love with the solution instead of falling in love with the problem. And I'll meet with anybody. You want to go meet and talk ideas and have coffee? Cool. What they do is they just fall in love with this idea of how to solve the problem. It's got to be a mobile app. I hear that all the time. Like, why? Do you know how expensive that is? You get 2 different code bases, and it's really expensive, and you got to find And why do you need that to solve this problem? So they get fixated on the solution instead of being in love with what is the problem. I will do anything it takes to solve the problem, but they get very closed-minded once they think they have the solution.
Yeah, we learned yesterday from Professor Halloran in the pitch training that you should spend 80% of your time on the problem and 20% of your time on the solution. And that's the second week in a row he's underscored that to the group. So it sounds like you all agree.
I don't have a tweed jacket with patches on my elbow like Professor Halloran does, but yes.
Right. Who's also a multi-time founder, right? He's been in the trenches. So along those lines of education, there is a question from a student in the chat. In regards to connections from education, has anything in your life been incredible networking experience?
You want to take that?
Sorry, in education and networking experience?
It says, in regards to connections from education, has anything in your life been an incredible networking experience? So maybe it's as related to education.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of our success is around networking. And it's networking does not mean like you get a business card or talk to someone at a cocktail party. Networking is the people that you've worked with in the trenches and you know and trust each other, helping each other for the rest of your career. And so the person who brought me into that agency years ago was my best friend from college. If we had not met and there, he would not have called me. I would not have had that opportunity, and I don't know where I'd be today. There's people from my business school that we worked well together and have traded help and assistance and worked with each other for questions over the years. There's people from Procter, amazing company that I met and still work with. And I think that all those and again, I think that if you think strategically, some of those places where you might work and the people you might work with, you're hoping to collect people on your team that you'll benefit from each other for the rest of your life. So again, looking at the real long game, at my agency, I worked there for 8 years and thought I had a little list of people here that I would start a company with. And sure enough, I hired like 6 of them at my next company. That kind of level of planning and thinking, and I don't know what, I didn't have job titles for them yet or those kinds of things, but just like, okay, I'm in parallel, we're working together, but I was like, who do I like working with? Who do I get along with? Who is this a good team that we could do stuff in the future?
Yeah, I think the question is a good one, and I know it's coming from your current environment, which is being in school. But I think if you take that concept and zoom out and more broadly think about what is the value of how you treat people generally, it is a big deal. And the idea of giving to people first really is helpful to you. Like, how can I help you? It's not always taking. And so people like that. They want to feel like you're giving to them, whether it's in school, with your friends, fraternity, sorority, clubs that you're in, jobs that you've had. This should not stop. It is fundamentally putting the best interest of others ahead of your own. And so people can feel that. That's how I would define networking. Is I don't want to start with, I've got this business and let me tell you all about it, and why don't you be my customer? That is the natural inclination because you're living on an island and you don't want to starve. But it really will backfire because people feel like you're taking and it's just all about you. As opposed to thinking more thoughtfully down the road. How do I want people to feel? How can I help you? I always start with, how can I help you? And I end with, if I can ever be of help to you, because it's genuine. I really want entrepreneurs and anyone in my life to be successful. And this is hard. And to feel like you're on an island is hard. So if I can help you, I will. It's like you ping me on LinkedIn, I will actually answer you. You send me an email, I will answer you. You text me, I will answer you. Because it's the right thing to do. So I think more broadly, outside of school, this is how you should be treating people all the time.
Wonderful.
true.
Yeah, wonderful advice. Sand and I both agree. Very
Mhm.
true words. And it looks like before we go, we have one more question from Carl, and he asked it's specifically to Bob. Can you talk about how your ability to identify talent has evolved, and how has it led you to build Hardy?
Yeah, I mean, definitely your ability to identify talent evolves as you go older in life, and just work with a lot of different people. I think generally I've interviewed tons of people, hired lots of people over the years, fired lots of people over the years. I think my evolution has been, and Carl, nice tee up there, but it's that by far, if we can go to, it's not about your resume, it's not about what school you went to, it's really of how are you like to work. And even if you go into deep research and scientific papers, the number one most accurate predictor of someone's work performance is the feedback from their peers in previous jobs. It's better than interviews, it's better than IQ tests, it's better than work tests, do this project and we'll evaluate it. And so that's where I've found the most success in the startup world. Either people I've worked with or people that I know and trust have made recommendations. And so that led to our new startup that we started the day after quitting our last one last spring, called Hardy. And if you send me a link, LinkedIn, I'll send you an invite to Hardy. But it's basically, we're trying to create a new professional network that's all about identifying and sharing those people that we've loved working with and know and trust. And LinkedIn is great as kind of an overall directory of people, but it's really hard to get that who do you know well and who would you want to work with again. So that's what we're trying to do here, starting in Cincinnati, and hopefully make a big dent in the universe in the years ahead.
Tarek, it also looks like that question got bounced to you as well. So if you have any last minute advice that you would like to share, feel free.
Let's see, on identifying talent.
Yes.
I use Hardy. I mean, this was such a softball. No, I think what Bob's doing is really great. I think it's meaningful. I think the best people that I've ever worked with, I want to work with again. And that when you're in the trenches with these people, when things are, especially when they're not going well, you will know who is with you and who shares your same philosophy. I think one interesting tangent here I would mention, because we're kind of on the topic, which is communication. And so as you get into this and you want to start a business and you find a co-founder, for example, oftentimes there is no communication about what success looks like. And it's really important. It is like getting married, especially with your co-founder, in the same way it is with your investors. So to have that conversation and really be on the same page with what are we trying to achieve? Where if Bob and I started a business together, Bob might say, well, I'm at a point in my life where I want to start $1 billion business. And if it's anything short of that, I don't want it. And I might be at a point in my life where I'll take, if someone comes to us with 3 burritos from Chipotle, I'll accept that. Like, that is so far apart in how we are defining success. It is really important to just communicate it and don't assume anything, especially with the people that will be the foundation of your business.
And also my Chipotle apparently arrived, so success. Somebody's getting a lot of burritos.
Right on time. Well, thank you so much, Bob and Tarek, for coming out today and sharing your wisdom. I know I personally got a lot of this talk, and I hope the students did as well. With that, I'd also like to thank our sponsors, P&G, Kroger First Financial, KMK, and also Taft for supporting the Entrepreneurs Change the World program. We couldn't be here without them. If you haven't already, I've spammed the chat several times, but please, please, please fill out that survey. We really appreciate any and all feedback. And in case you want to rewatch this event or share it with your friends, it will be available to watch via record on the schedule. But with that, thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we hope to see you Thursday with Flywheel and talking about social innovation. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.